That is fast. So we're looking at Molly and Tenbrooks from the Bluegrass album band 1, track 3. Looking at what Tony's doing here, and yeah, like right off the bat, right into it, they're at like 280 beats a minute. That is up there. It is way faster than I can just comfortably play. My wrist feels like it's, kind of on fire right now just trying to follow him, and I know I wasn't doing it completely justice, but let's take a look at what Tony's doing here, because there's some really neat differences in the way he approaches a solo on a song like Molly and Tenbrooks as opposed to, what we last looked at with Blue Ridge Cabin Home. So I'm going to slow it down to 70% and play through it, and then we can start talking about it. So here's 70%. Okay, so and I'll definitely put a link of my transcription notes in the description of this video or whatever, so you can take a look at what I'm looking at here too. But to sit down and transcribe this, it was almost actually easier to transcribe this faster solo because he approaches it a little bit more in chunks. Whereas like Blue Ridge Cabin Home, even though it was still pretty, it was up there, it was still pretty fast, he would anticipate chord changes or kind of hold over harmonies between chords and in more like seamless eighth note fashion. And this, because it is so much faster, it's at, like I said, right at the breaking point for a lot of people. He takes his solo and phrases it into smaller groups, and it's split up by several quarter notes too, so it's not just continuous eighth notes. So he starts the phrase with, and again, he likes to set up his phrases with that syncopated D string on the and of 1, which it was really tough in Blue Ridge Cabin Home at like 250, 260 beats a minute. It's really tough on Molly and Tenbrooks at 280 beats per minute. And I think it's really interesting that he sets up that G note or that G string note that way with all those pick strokes, because again, it's really fast. Whereas like I would be more inclined to do the whole, just fewer pick strokes, but he just. So he hits that G note, slides up to that G note again, and then hits those open Gs. So he's adding some different texture because the melody's hanging out right there, and he's just doing it to add a little different texture to make it a little bit more interesting. And like a lot of guitar players enjoy doing stuff like that, where the melody itself might be kind of sparse and simple. So how do I spice it up but keep it true? And he does the same kind of approach where he like drops down and then slides up again on when he gets to scale degree 5 of the melody note. So 2 similar motions, and then to get into the 4 chord, to get into I'm targeting capoed, so when he's getting into the C shape, which I think is a really neat move. It's nothing fancy, very simple, just a nice hammer-on, and that pull-off is a whole lot easier than you think it is. Again, I'll put these notes on there. I originally thought, and I like to lay my finger over to catch that high G note too. You could catch an open E too, just to add a little bit more. It makes that E really pop. But to me, it's just so much easier because I'm already kind of in position for that. And I originally thought he was going back to that first position, and that's what my hands are kind of inclined to go to there. But then this next phrase where he sets up, he actually slides down from a C note down to an open G, and you really can't do that with that string crossing. You really don't have a place to slide. So let's look at that again. That is a cool lick to get from the C back to that G chord. that's one that I'm definitely going to throw in my tool bag or toolbox to get back and forth from that 4 chord to that 1 chord, because that, I mean, that's just really neat. So again, so we can already see that we've got a lot of quarter notes happening. There's one, there's another, there's another, there's another. And it's kind of and there's a tied note in the tied 8th note into a quarter note, a half note, slid quarter note. There's another one, another one. Oops. And when you're listening to him, when I slowed it down to like 70% when I was transcribing it out, he's picking all of these notes too, and I would really like to. So when he sets up the D chord, those are all notes that he's picking, and I really want to slide into it. Which is, like I said, in and of itself, this tempo, those many 8th notes that fast it's really difficult. Then he, the tail end of it here, he hangs on this G note. So he hangs on this G note, and as a guitar player, you know, our tendency is to be moving through 8th notes quite a bit, really fast, or to be kind of cross-picking over 2 notes or 3 notes. But he's breaking up the texture again by just hanging onto this 1 note, kind of like, I don't know, it just kind of sounds like a banjo lick to me. And then he goes into that weird pentatonic shapey kind of bluesy thing. So over that D chord, it's kind of cool because he lands on that C note and then takes a break from it. So over that D chord, he's going, and then he slides into the 1. But he hands on that C chord and then catches his open G string. Man, that's a pretty big string crossing, especially at that speed. So, just one more time at 70%. Like I said, you know, it's kind of just, it's neat to see how he will start grouping his notes clusters like a little bit closer and separating them with like quarter notes and half notes too, just to kind of give himself a break. But it sounds really good. So here's 70%. So that's syncopation. So there you have it. That's Molly and Tenbrooks.